Hi everybody and welcome to David's Garage. Today I'm going to be doing my 1 month review of these Redwing Iron Rangers that I have in the amber harness leather. So I saw these on Sierra.com. I got these as factory seconds. They were about just over $200 with taxes. So for me, I've been wearing these boots about 4 to 5 days a week for the last 4 weeks, and I've been wearing them actually mainly for work. Now I don't work in construction. I'm not a wildland firefighter, so I really don't submit my boots to really extreme abuse. I have not been taking it easy on these boots. I have been not babying them. You know, I've just been like, hey, I'm wearing this boot. I don't care if it gets beat up. So this leather, again, it is the amber harness leather from Redwing. Redwing gets all their leathers from their in-house tannery, SB Foot. I've been really happy with this leather in terms of overall durability. I would say it probably took about a week for the uppers leather to really feel, you know, broken in and comfortable. So it wasn't extreme at all, but it was a pretty stiff leather. I would say this leather was definitely on the stiffer side for me in terms of break-in and temper. And it's summertime here in the Midwest, so I haven't been wearing them in really any inclement weather. Like, it hasn't rained a lot. But I know that this is a combination tan leather. It's chrome tan and then oil tan. So the way this leather is made, I do expect it to be pretty weather resistant and pretty extremely durable. And as you can see, I do beat up my toes a lot because when I'm bending and kneeling for my job, I do put a lot of pressure on the front of the boot and on the toes. And having this true toe cap, it really helps protect my feet, helps my feet feel protected. But I think the leather, I really wasn't worried about the overall durability on this leather. And as you can see, it's really, taking the beating beautifully. I really don't have any concerns about, this leather failing. Honestly, the more you break it and beat it up, I think the better it looks. Like I said on my unboxing, SB Foot's leathers, they're not my favorites. I don't love them. I don't think they're, the best, but they are still really good quality leathers in terms of overall durability. This leather, amber harness, it's a full grain leather. From my understanding, SB Foot, they'll get the chrome tan leather in, and then they'll oil tan it, pack it full of lots of oils to give it this finish and this color. Recommended care for this leather, honestly, I would just brush it, often. You can see I haven't brushed it at all because I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like after a month. But in terms of like what I'll do to probably take care of this leather is I'll probably just brush it after every wear, get all that dust and dirt off, and then I will probably condition them maybe once a year, if that. This leather, since it's packed with lots of oil, it really doesn't need much conditioning. Once it starts to feel super dry, that's when, if you ever notice that, that's when you should probably condition it. But obviously, you probably don't want to over condition it. I'm probably just going to use either Venetian shoe cream or the leather cream made by Redwing. I've used Brick 4 a few times. It's also a good alternative, but that's what I'm probably going to be using on these boots. So let's take a look at the stitching. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but you see how like that stitching goes nicely around the vamp and the quarters right there. But then if you look at this boot, you can see the stitching is super like lopsided. So that's probably why these are factory seconds. The stitching looks fine. I didn't have any worries about the stitching. The build quality from Redwing, it's definitely pretty good. They are made in the factory in Redwing, Minnesota. So they're made in America. You can see I must have scraped up against something. The top layer of the leather is scraped off there and there. Not sure if you guys can see that. But yeah, so stitching looks great. You can see the stitching on the welt looks fine. This outsole, since it's pretty tough, hard rubber, it's gonna last a while. And honestly, the first part that I notice when I start wearing a boot for work, where the boot really starts to look a little bit damaged, is the toe and then the front of the welt right here. And these actually look still really good. Like, I beat the crap out of my toes. The welt is separating from the front of the outsole. I'm not worried about that. Honestly, I really don't care about that. It could be a big deal, but it's really not a big deal. You can see you got the stitching still. There's tons of glue. If it ever gets like crazy, I'll take it to a cobbler and that's an easy fix. So I'm not worried about the delamination of this welt in this outsole. I still think that welt looks really good for me beating these up for a month. And like, as I've worn Trumans, I've worn Parkhurst, and you know, whenever I wear them for work, if I wear them for work too much, the front of this welt just starts to look really bad really fast. And that's always a concern because I don't want to beat up the welt too much. I want to reuse it if I ever get the boots resold. And I'll tell you right now, these leather welts, they're holding up really nicely. Okay, so for the outsole, so this is a Vibram Mini Lug 430 sole. So this is the same sole that I got on my Drew's Contractors. And it's a pretty hard rubber in terms of like overall durability. It's gonna definitely take a beating really nicely. It's gonna last a long time. These lugs give me a decent amount of grip. The only downside really for this outsole is that if you're ever in like a wet situation, or if you wear them into winter, because of the cold and the hardness of this rubber, the rubber will get even harder and the traction will be really bad. So in the winter time, this outsole can be pretty slippery. Like, it could feel like an ice skate. But I don't have a problem with this outsole. It's not my favorite, but it's fine. I have no problem getting a 430 outsole. You can see the heel and the treads. They are still looking pretty good after a month. Again, this is only a month, so this is exactly what I would expect. But I'm happy with this outsole. So now let's talk about the comfort and the fit. Okay, so let's start with the fit. You know, I'm a 10.5D on the Brannock. I've gotten Redwing Iron Rangers before. These are not my first pair. I've had tons of Redwing's heritage boots, and so I've always known I'm a size 10 and they're number 8 last. And so this boot, they fit me perfectly. I will say I do like how this last hugs my foot. So like, I do like how the waist and the heel are slim, and then you have a slightly roomy wide toe box in terms of width and length. So I do like that. It does lock my heel in nicely. So I do like that. When I wear these boots, I don't feel like any slipping or any sliding. So I do think it's a good fit for me. I do like how it locks my foot in. In terms of like X and Y axis, it's a pretty slim boot. If you've seen my video on why I sold my Iron Rangers, I did admit that the way this last is designed is actually really nice. It's actually a really, you know, cleverly designed last. Now, do I love the bulbous toe box? No, I don't love it. There are other lasts that I prefer, like the 602M last from Parkhurst. I think that is a really nicely balanced last for my foot. But obviously everyone's foot is different. So what works best for my foot isn't going to be, you know, probably what works best for your foot. And in terms of taste, like, everybody's taste is different. People like the look of the Redwing Iron Ranger. Some people hate the look of the Redwing Iron Ranger. I don't hate the look of the Iron Ranger. I think it looks pretty cool. Do I love it? No, it's definitely not my favorite looking boot. But overall, I give it a thumbs up. Another benefit with having this slim waist is that it does hug the side of my foot. So it gives you a little bit extra arch support. So you can see it's not really a high-heeled boot. It doesn't have tons of arch support, but because it's got a really slim waist, when you tie these up tight and you got the right size, when you tie them, this boot is really going to hug your waist nicely. I will say that because it doesn't have a lot of leather underfoot, it's on the lighter side in terms of like heritage boots. The thing that's going to be the hardest to break in is this uppers leather, but then you have that thick veg tan insole, you know. But other than that, you know, it's a nice, light, flexible boot. So in terms of comfort, overall, I think that, you know, once you get these broken in, these are actually a pretty decently comfortable boot. Now, because it doesn't have any foam, it's not going to feel like a sneaker. But I think if you size them right, your feet should not be in pain. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any discomfort, because when you first start breaking in the boot, the leather is going to need some breaking in. But you shouldn't be, you know, wincing in pain. You shouldn't be getting like blisters for like months and months after wearing them. If you're still, this is just my experience and my opinion, so your experience may vary, but you know, for me, I would say if my foot is hurting or being uncomfortable for more than say like 3 or 4 days in these boots, then something more is wrong other than break-in. But yeah, you know, if you guys have any tips or tricks for, you know, comfort or break-in on these Iron Rangers, you know, let me know your experience, let me know your advice down in the comments. I'm sure people who are interested in the Redwing Iron Ranger, they would really appreciate, you know, everyone's input. Okay, so now let's discuss the overall build quality and some of the pros and some of the cons. So the overall build quality, I think, is really good. I think that these have a really good build quality. Some of the pros are that this leather, it's extremely durable and rugged leather. It doesn't have a leather lining, and it has a canvas lining on the vamp, and it has no lining on the quarters. Also, it doesn't have a veg tan heel counter. It's got I believe it's a leatherboard heel counter. So, and it's got a true toe cap. So I would say, oh, and it doesn't have a midsole, I forgot. It doesn't have a leather midsole. It just has this outsole, the layer of cork, and then the leather footbed. So I think that these boots, you might think I'm crazy, but these boots are an excellent summer boot just because you don't have really any lining on the inside other than the canvas, which is super breathable. The only thing that probably makes it less breathable is just the dual layer of leather here on the toe. But other than that, you know, because it doesn't have that midsole, it's going to make it more flexible, it's going to make it more light. So I think these are an excellent casual heritage boot option, and I think that they're an excellent summer option. Now, what are some of the cons? Well, some of the cons are it doesn't have a midsole, it doesn't have a veg tan leather heel counter, it doesn't have leather lining in the vamp. Because it doesn't have that leather midsole, it's not going to be as shock absorbent, especially these lugs. These lugs are, you know, hard. You know, that's, you know, kind of a downside because they're not as shock absorbent, it's not as soft. And if you had that leather midsole, that would help to make the boot a little bit more shock absorbent. Also, because it only has canvas lining in the vamp and not leather, that is not going to last as long as, say, like a leather lining. And then, yeah, like I said, this is a leatherboard heel counter. It's not a veg tan leather heel counter, so it's not as durable and sturdy as a veg tan heel counter. So I'm not too worried about the heel counter, but the midsole and then the canvas lining, those are probably like the two biggest opportunities. But I do like that this is a gusseted tongue. You can see it's gusseted up until that first eyelet. The hardware for the eyelets and the speed hook are pretty good. Definitely, if I wanted to, I could probably bend these, but if I squeeze them hard enough, so they're not the most durable. And you can also see that the back of these speed hooks, they're you know, like you can see like sometimes this metal can eat into the tongue, so that's kind of a concern. So that's why some people, they'll wear kilties with their boots to protect the tongue from the backing of these speed hooks and eyelets. Oh, and then another thing that I'll mention is if you have ever watched Trenton and Heath, they're a YouTube channel where they resole boots and shoes, and they have an excellent channel. Go check them out. They'll talk about on the Redwing Iron Ranger that when they do resoles, usually the canvas gemming for the Goodyear welt comes unglued pretty easily. So, is there anything that I would change? Well, okay, this is just my opinion, but you know, I think that the way this boot is designed, it's really nicely designed, and it's what people like about it. What I would change is I probably wouldn't make the toe as bulbous. I would definitely make the vamp lining leather, not canvas. Honestly, I'm not too worried about the midsole and the outsole, because the outsole I do like, even though it's on the harder side and it's not good for winter use. I mean, these boots are really not good winter boots in general, but I'm not too worried about changing the outsole. When I get them resoled, if I do get them resoled, I most likely will go with a different outsole. And then adding a midsole, honestly, I'm not too worried about a midsole just because I do like how it makes the boot a little bit lighter. It makes it a little bit more flexible those are just some things I probably would change. I think the two things are mainly, I don't love this bulbous toe box, and I don't love that canvas lined vamp. Would I buy these again? Well, honestly, no, I probably would not buy these again, because these cost brand new $350 plus tax and shipping, you know, if you buy them through the Redwing's website. I just, you know, if I'm gonna spend that amount of money, I'm just gonna buy a Truman boot. I'm gonna buy a Parkhurst boot. I'm gonna buy a boot where I like the last better and where I like the leather better. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. That's pretty much everything I have for you guys today, but you know, I know that the Redwing Iron Ranger, it's one of the, if not the most popular heritage boot in the world. If you have it and you have any thoughts on it, please share your thoughts. I'm really interested actually to hear, you know, everybody else's experience on this Redwing Iron Ranger boot. This is just my own perspective and experience. Otherwise, you know, that's everything. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next video.